Hi, my name's Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Trillium. Have you ever woken up in a kind of a daze? And it takes a while to get your orientation. It feels kind of odd. I've had that experience, having a sort of an afternoon nap and going into a much deeper sleep than I wanted to. And I wake up and I don't even feel well for a while. We have, it's Easter, so we had our Easter sunrise service at a local park. And at Trillium, they take the Easter sunrise quite literally. Some churches, they see it as a kind of more symbolic thing. They have it a little bit later in the morning. At Trillium, they have it really early. So like this year, we had it at 6:15, which meant I had to get up at 5 o'clock. And I'm not an early bird to start with. And so I had to set my alarm for 5 a.m. Then, of course, when 5 a.m. comes rolling around, I'm still in a deep sleep and the alarm goes off. And man, I'm kind of jolted awake. But I'm not really awake. I'm sort of awake, but I'm not really awake. And many spiritual traditions see this sleep as a symbol of the kind of life that we live normally, that we walk around half asleep most of the time. Sometimes we become a little more awake, but most of the time we're just half asleep, kind of going through the motions of life, sleepwalking. And I was experiencing that this morning as I was struggling to get myself ready for this Easter sunrise service. When I was about 18, I had had my fill of Christianity. I'd been to a few churches, none of them really connected with me. And I left, and I started connecting with the Toronto Zen Meditation Center in St. Clair and Bathurst at the time. And in the Zen tradition, it's meditation's the focus, and the goal is satori. Satori is that initial awakening, to comprehension and understanding of one's true nature. It's awakening to one's true nature, and we translate it as enlightenment. It's a new point of view that we gain with respect to our life and the world that we're a part of. And when I went down to the Toronto Zen Meditation Center, we would practice meditation for about 2 hours in an evening. And we'd do it in 35-minute sections. You'd sit on this meditation pillow, you'd look at this kind of blank wall, and you'd try to still your mind of all thoughts. And then after 35 minutes, there'd be 5 minutes of chanting as we marched around the room. And then we'd start another practice session of meditation for another 35 minutes. And it's really tough to try to clear your mind for 35 minutes, let alone 2 hours. And sometimes you needed some extra help. And the leader would go around the room with a bamboo stick about maybe once or twice in each sitting session. And if you needed help, you'd put up your hand like this. And then that person would come over with the bamboo stick and they'd whack you on your acupuncture point here. You know that part that gets sore when you need to massage it sometimes? And they'd whack you right there. And it would jolt it would jolt the body, it would jolt the mind, and you'd get this new energy, this surge of energy. If you were feeling sore, it would go away and you'd refocus yourself. And it felt really good, even though it stung a bit. In fact, in the Zen tradition, there are stories of Zen masters actually taking the bamboo stick and cracking it over a student's head. When they recognized the student was just on the verge of awakening and they needed that little extra push, they'd actually break the bamboo stick over the head of the student. Not in an act of cruelty, but in an act of deep compassion, trying to stir this true nature, this deep part of ourselves into that waking place. And I think the disciples are asleep in a really profound way. They are not getting Jesus. They're just not getting him in any way at all. They're not getting his teachings. They're not getting his actions. They're not getting his miracle making. They don't understand what's being moved through his life, what he's trying to give to them as well. See, because for Jesus, it's essential that there be a transfer from the one Christ to the many Christ. That mantle would go from himself to those 12 disciples, that they would become now the body and life force of God in the world. And by Gethsemane, when we looked at Gethsemane, the story of Gethsemane, it had been pretty clear to Jesus that this isn't going to take effect. This transfer isn't going to work. And he's praying in the garden, and the disciples are asleep. They're totally asleep, literally. And he comes back and forth with them, and they're just not waking up. And on Good Friday, we realize that they're not going to wake up. The time clock has played itself out, and this transfer of the mantle from Jesus to the disciples ends. There's no chance of it. Judas betrays Jesus. Peter denies Jesus. The 12 scamper in different directions. That Jesus community, that Jesus movement is broken to pieces. and it's not going to happen. And then there's this stillness. And the Creator breathes. And on Sunday morning, on Easter morning, a small group of women go to the tomb to anoint Jesus' body with spices and oils. And when they get there, they see that the rock in front of the tomb has been moved. And they're curious about this. And they look in and they see no body there, just some linen cloth, and they are perplexed, stupefied. They have no explanation for what's really happened. And of course, in that moment begins the whole Easter experience. And to me, it's as if God is lifting up the bamboo stick and is now whacking it over the heads of those first disciples. What couldn't happen while Jesus was alive now happens when Jesus is resurrected, because the resurrection itself becomes the thing that jolts them out of their normal consciousness and perception. And they begin to see in new ways. What couldn't take effect in human terms now takes effect in divine terms. This transfer, the mantle, now begins to take shape in the lives of the disciples. And it gets me wondering, for those of us who follow afterwards, how is the mantle to be transferred to us? Because each generation transfers it forwards, pays it forward. How are we to awake to the truth of the resurrection of Jesus in our own lives so that we can move into this Christ consciousness and see the world from a new point of view? How do we wake up? How do we go about in claiming this incredible blessing for our own lives? And I don't have any simple solutions for us, but I do know this, that the opportunity is at hand. And we need to meditate deeply and passionately on the resurrection of Jesus. We need to invite the Christ consciousness to awaken us. We need to allow the Holy Spirit to move through us. We need to allow God to shift us from one perception to another. And I invite you to stay to think about how you can become now the Christ in the world, how your hands and your life, your heart, your body, your mind can now become Christ's body in the world, that you can allow God to move divine love through you to all the circumstances you find yourselves in. And when that happens, Easter will not be something that we remember only 2,000 years ago. It will happen in your life. And the resurrection of the Son of God will be a part of your immediate consciousness. And you will know the truth. And you will be set free. So be set free this day. Let Easter and its love capture your mind and heart, and you will become the instrument of God's greatness in the world. Go in peace.